Well, welcome to our next installment of interviews with women who are involved in construction. And we have been bringing together all sorts of interesting folks from different perspectives and dynamics. And with us today is Anna Berger, who is one of the founders of Trade. And we came to meet each other in a very unusual way. Um, Generationally, you are much closer to my kids than you are to me, which is great. I think the generational difference is for old folks like me. It's important to remember that the younger generation has some really good ideas. But Anna and my kids went to the same summer camp way back, so we had just sort of been connected through that. And just as a little bit of a setup, because this is Women in Construction Week, after all, women in construction represent about 10% of the industry. And it's interesting because I wonder if that even captures folks like you, who are clearly working in the industry, but not working for construction companies, not working in the trades. So there's a whole lot going on that we will sort of jump into. But before we sort of talk about women in construction, tell me a little bit about your background, your path to construction, and where the idea for a trade sort of cropped up from.
Absolutely. So I'm actually from a New York City construction family, daughter of an architect, and my uncles are all subcontractors and GCs. So I've been on construction sites since I can walk. It's a space that is deeply personal to me, right? The people in my life who I love very much, have devoted their lives to building the world around us, and there's nothing really more inspiring than that. So I took a very windy path to working in construction. I went to the University of Michigan, and then I moved to New York City, where I worked in advertising for a few years. And then I went in-house to Marriott International, where I was on the global marketing team for several years. That was really my few years in corporate, which I loved, and I think is super important to anybody starting out to really be a part of a big business and find your way there before, going smaller. 2018 is when I decided to build my first startup, which is what predated Trade. I worked on that for 3 years, and once that chapter ended, Trade really began. The kind of light bulb moment for Trade happened when I was working with my dad in his back office, and recognizing that he's a cool dad. He was tech adopting, and he was trying to use a bunch of different systems to run his day to day. And unfortunately for him and for the industry at large, there's no specific construction tool or that existed in 2021 that kind of spoke to his exact needs of running his back office. And so he was using 5 or 6 different tools to run his day to day. And none of those systems were speaking to each other. And it added a ton of confusion and inefficiency. And so that was really where I started thinking about how much disruption was available in this space. But as you can imagine, where do you even begin, right? Like the construction back office is an absolute nightmare. And to land and hone in on a wedge or a specific concept seemed almost impossible. So it was something that I was like ruminating on, but couldn't necessarily put my finger on like what exactly I wanted to build. And then chance encounter a couple of months later, I was out to lunch with my dad and one of his subcontractors who was basically in the same sentence complaining about ADP messing up his last few payroll runs. And at the same time, he was losing workers faster than he could keep up because they wanted same day pay. So instead of, the traditional 1 or 2 week pay cycle, they were looking for payments faster. And they got kind of teased by that with the companies like Uber, who started offering instant payments. And so, this one subcontractor in the same breath is like, I hate my payroll platform and my workers are leaving because they want faster pay. And I'm sitting there and it was like, light bulb, like I'm going to innovate payroll. And that is really where Trade was born.
Yeah, and I have to imagine it's daunting to think about going up against ADP and Paychecks and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other behemoths in the industry who do this kind of work. And like the construction industry, payroll companies are not so innovative, right? They've been doing it the same way. Um, Construction companies very much sort of have the same ethos. We've always been doing it that way. Why would we change something and do something else? What have you seen in terms of the industry, in terms of the reaction to what you're bringing to contractors?
People are ready. That's the number one thing I'm seeing. People are, they've accepted the status quo with these kind of like dinosaur incumbent platforms that haven't really changed very much in 15 years, right? But they're so ready for a change to meet the current demands of their job. Construction is ever evolving. Every year it changes and the demand is higher than it's ever been. And yet the software has stayed exactly the same. How is that possible? And you're starting, like, once I was able to kind of bring this idea of trade into the market, it's only been well received.
That's tremendous. I am, I'm a construction professional who is sort of non-traditional in terms of my career. So I really do appreciate that. When you start to think about who your ideal or target customer is, what sort of shapes out that profile for
Yeah.
who you're looking for and who this would be ideally suited to address?
We've done a lot of work in honing in on our ICP and understanding who our perfect target audience is. And ultimately, what it comes down to is the person that's paying workers in the field and in the office, right? And so that really narrows out the GCs, the developers, the owners. Like, this product isn't for them. This is for the contractors who are paying anywhere from 10 to 1,000 workers any given week. We are trade agnostic. We support HVAC, we support fire alarms, we support stairs. Whatever you're building, we can run your payroll. And we also support public and private sector. So we do support union payroll as well.
Yeah. Well, and union payroll is, for those projects that are in the public space, public sector, right? That certified payroll, as I'm sure you know, is a monumental issue. Right? It's monumental, right? Because the idea of certified payroll and making sure it's done right and everything is accounted for is sometimes the difference between uh, finding yourself in front of a district attorney and
Yeah.
and not.
Yes.
So I can sort of appreciate that. And I saw that you had posted a picture, I guess yesterday, the day before, of you as
Yes.
you looked up maybe 5 or 6 years old.
I think I was 4. Yeah.
Standing on the treads of an earth mover.
Yeah.
Outside of the clear OSHA violations, which we won't really,
We don't have to get into it.
Yeah, we won't get into that.
Construction looked very different in 1996 when that picture was taken.
Oh, it looked a lot different. The attitudes were probably a lot different. Hopefully they're changing a little bit. But you have a personal background with construction.
Yes.
Have sort of come back around professionally to the industry. Can you talk a little bit about your experience of being a woman in construction? And we sort of framed it out that, like, construction is a lot of different things. It's not just the people in the office working for construction companies. It's not just people working for contractors. There is the scope and breadth of things that touch construction is tremendous. So talk a little bit about your experience of working in the construction space, maybe in comparison to what you experienced in a corporate environment.
It's a great question and something I'm asked all the time. I think within this space, what people look for is capability and ability to deliver. And if you prove that you're able to not only contribute, but contribute very positively, then people are on your side and want to help you. I think that there's an initial shock when I'm the person selling or introducing construction software, and if I introduce myself as the founder, people are like, what? But once they understand that I've been on job sites since I can walk and construction's in my blood, and there's really no one better to solve this problem than me, then they start really listening. And so I don't mind shocking people on entry, and, creating an opportunity to win them over.
And how much of that sort of surprise that you get, probably walking through the door or trying to get those meetings, is a function of being a woman in construction or being of just a much younger generation, right? You are, I assume you are Gen Z, not right?
No,
Millennial, right?
I'm a millennial.
I,
Yes.
I, yeah, I never quite know where the boundaries are.
Yes.
But how much of it do you think is coming in as a younger person, with your buyers who are looking at you and kind of having that attitude of like, what could you possibly know, show me, understand about this
Yep.
business that I've been running for 40 years, maybe?
Yep. You have to listen very carefully to what they complain about and then speak to those pain points. And so that it's very hard to argue someone who spits back exactly what's bothering you, right? And
Yeah,
so sales 101, but that's the truth. I spend a lot of my day listening and learning and understanding and empathizing. And ultimately, people want to feel like their problems are safe and that they can be successful with you. And so when you create that atmosphere, you're likely going to succeed.
yeah. And just, we haven't really talked about it. Your partner in all of this,
Yes.
is also a woman. I don't know I'm not quite sure what Kara's background is.
Yeah.
Um,
She's a
but
trailblazer in her own way.
yeah,
She
so
has
talk about
also, yeah,
talk about her background a little bit and how the two of you sort of came together in this endeavor.
yeah. So, I mean, the context on Kara and I is we've known each other for over 21 years. We grew up together. And I think that that's really the secret sauce to starting a company. You need to work alongside someone who you trust implicitly. When you are when the head count is small and two people are in completely opposite directions and handling totally different coverage zones, you need to look at someone and be like, you got this and I got what I'm doing, and like I trust you implicitly. And we have that here, which I think is so invaluable. And we have no overlapping skills, which we love to talk about. She is like everything technical, and I am not. And she covers my blind spots and vice versa. She had a very different career path than me. She basically started out as an intern at LinkedIn and spent 9 years climbing the ladder there. She is a very like the what's the right word? Like celebrated engineer for what
Mhm.
she has achieved. And she says this all the time, like she hasn't worked with a woman in 6 or 7 years, right? Being an engineer. So like for her, this is like double compounded. Not only is
Yeah,
she like a woman in construction, but she's a woman in construction engineering. And that's where you get into the 0.00001%. So,
yeah.
trailblazer 100%.
So tell me a little bit about, right, because you came from a corporate world and now you're entrepreneur, business owner. Uh, tell me a little, talk to me a little bit about like making that transition. What do you love about being a business owner? What
Yeah.
are the things that you just like at the end of the day, you're like, I just can't believe like this is
Yeah.
what business ownership is all about.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'll start with the bad, which is it doesn't stop, right? Like I can't, if I'm having an off day or I'm tired, I can't just be like, I'll deal with it tomorrow. Like this is relentless and this is my life's work. I'm not going anywhere and I love what I do, but there are days where you're just tired and like, unfortunately, it doesn't matter. You got to keep going. And so I think that that's just the downside, right? Is there's no break. It's relentless. On the flip side, it's like, I have this vision that I can bring to life, right? Like I can execute on what I want with no one kind of pushing or pulling me in any direction. Obviously we take input from our team and our investors and our advisors, but like ultimately the decision lies with Kara and myself, and that is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And I have to imagine there have been lots of folks along the way who have been your champions, your advocates, your role models. Who sort of falls into that category for you?
So the first person that comes to mind is my boss at Marriott. I always used to say, like, when I grow up, I want to be you. She was 10 years ahead of me, and absolutely just a total dynamo in all ways. And managed to do all of that with 3 kids and a husband, right? So she led a team of 15 at Marriott, and showed up every day looking like $1,000,000 and had the highest energy and would bring food for the team and just like kept the morale so high every day, knowing the work was so hard and she demanded so much of us. And I remember looking at her every day being like, I love working for you. You make work fun. And like, I want to be that kind of boss. And she's still we talk all the time. We're constantly texting. We're very much in each other's lives. And, her career has evolved. I've gone in a totally different direction. And yet like, she's still the person I look up to the most. So professionally, that's for me. And then I've had a lot of people within construction that have been like my guardian angels, like GCs and construction managers and subcontractors who have taken me under their wing and have shown me the way. And I'm so grateful for those people.
Yeah. So you talk about having a female boss. Have you worked for men? Have you also worked for men in the past?
I have, yes.
So talk, right, and not necessarily just in the construction space, but like talk a little bit about, and clearly it becomes a little bit generalized because you're talking about individuals, and you can't necessarily
Yeah.
say this is for everyone, but talk about the difference that you've experienced in terms of having a female boss versus having a male boss.
It's a great question. And I don't know if I've ever thought too much about it, because I think ultimately when you sign up for a job, you sign up for the job that you have to do, right? And you're focused on that. But I think there's a certain level of transparency that you can have with a fellow female in the workplace that you might not necessarily have with a male. Maybe slightly better communication, if I dare say. Yeah, I think those 2 things probably pop out the most. A little bit more transparency and open communication have been more apparent in like female to female interactions.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is some of the research is that in terms of not just in my industry, our industry, but just sort of writ large, women tend to have better communication skills, much better about sort of fostering that cohesiveness,
Yes.
right? Fostering a little bit more of a
Culture.
team environment, culture, aware of what's happening in perhaps personal lives with the team members, and I think that in certain respects that maybe that's the superpower that women bring to in many respects. From your experience, how do we start to bring that a little bit more into the construction space, right? Elevating that superpower for and the dynamic that you've described of like not having that competitive nature, right?
Yeah.
There is a tendency for where there were fewer women in an industry for there to be more competition, as opposed to more collaboration and cooperation.
Totally. Ultimately, it comes down to just greater representation, right? And more people showing up for the job that are, that's ultimately what's going to change the dynamic. And you need to, I've always found you need to see someone in a role for you to see yourself in that role eventually, right? Representation matters so much. And I think you need these women to step forward and lead. And that's hard. I mean, it's going to take some time, right? Like the numbers are off balance. I think you mentioned 10%. I think it's way lower. And maybe you have
10% within the entire industry
Right,
4% in the trades.
right. Which is like, whew, that's
Yeah.
low. It's low.
Well,
So
especially
there's
when
work to be done.
women represent, 48% of of the workers in America, right?
Right,
So, right,
right.
there is this lopsided nature,
Yep.
and you didn't, right? So even though you had exposure to construction, and early on, that was not your chosen career path.
Yeah.
For you coming out of University of Michigan, go blue. My son is a graduate
Go
as well.
blue.
Um, what do you think we need to do to attract more women into the industry? Right? Is it a marketing? Is it getting them to understand what the industry is all about? I mean, you highlighted very early on in our conversation about the built environment and what we do,
Mhm.
and that what we do in terms of construction touches just about every point,
Everything.
everything, right? Whether it's without being credit, you flush the toilet, there is
Yeah.
somebody at the right down all the way downstream involved in
It's
construction.
wild. I can walk down the street of New York, right? Walking past scaffolding, walking past a new development, walking past a demolition. And I'm literally like, that's my customer. That's my customer. That's my customer. Like construction is everywhere. And I think, even knowing this, like I was born into this world, and yet like my exposure to it was limited, right? Being the daughter of someone in the space. Like I think there needs to be greater awareness for how widespread construction is the heartbeat of America. Like it is certainly the heartbeat of New York City. If you
Sure.
like pay attention to the rumblings of what's going on around you, you realize it's all construction. And I think that that is when you paint that picture and that magnitude and like the impact you can have on the built world, I think more people would be excited. But it's almost this like underbelly, right? Where it's like it's happening and you don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And because these workers are up at the crack of dawn, right? They're up on the job site before 6 a.m. And so
Yep.
when people are like, oh, I just didn't know about it, it's like you were still sleeping when
Yeah.
that building came down. It's
Yeah.
like, and so I think that like A, it's an awareness play, and B, it's like making sure there are certain women paving the way for other women.
Yeah. And part of it, I think we have an image problem for the industry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's a boys
The
club.
right, and the image is that it is all tools and dirt and work boots and hard hats and everything else. And Carrie, your partner, who is an engineer,
Yeah,
um, could have easily gone into construction engineering as opposed to going
totally.
into right.
Software.
I am sure she's got the same. It's the same thought process, same structured thinking that would have made her successful in construction, consulting, engineering in the built environment.
Yeah.
But probably was guided in a different way because construction has just it's got an image that does not necessarily it's not all that inviting to a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Um, so
It's rough and tough, you
it is
know?
rough and tough, and the women who I know who have spent their careers in construction they they are tough, right? They are right. They're not pushovers. They're not shrinking violets. I think we've done a good job in terms of bringing folks forward in terms of the way we communicate. When I started, I always joke that the way superintendents and foremen communicated when I first started 30 plus years ago would be described by volume and how many four-letter words could you squeeze into a sentence.
Hmm.
We we have hopefully moved a little bit away from that, but some of that still happens, and
Yeah.
there is we are not the most genteel industry. We're
Yeah,
not lawyers, we're not doctors, we're not so we have to acknowledge that as well.
for
um,
sure.
yeah. What is one piece of advice you would give either women in construction or for women who potentially could fit into the construction industry?
My motto in general, and they're words I live by, which you can tell by my career path, is no risk, no reward. You cannot like truly enter into a new dimension or a new thought pattern if you do not risk something. And so even if it doesn't like match your current vibe or brand, it doesn't mean you're not capable of it. And so be bold, go for it, right? Like shock people. Back to what I initially said. Shock people and like see what happens there. I've only found scary things, but good things on the other side of risk and taking that step I didn't think I should take.
Yeah. And the interesting thing that, in terms of being a little scared in terms of the taking risk, the you have the same physiological reaction to excitement and fear.
Yeah.
Right? Anxiety and excitement have the same exact physiological reaction.
Yep.
But they are at opposite ends of the spectrum, but your body reacts to them the same way.
Yeah.
So sometimes what we associate with fear is really a sense of excitement and standing on the precipice of like something that could be great, but there's a sense of there's a little bit of fear and trepidation that goes with it, but you get the same physical reaction as being excited about things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So tell me, what is the next year look like for trade?
Growth across every like dimension. So not only team growth, but customer growth, product evolution. The foundation is there, the team is there, and now it's time to just expand and expand and expand and keep delivering on what our customers are asking us for.
Yeah, that's excellent. And so from your customers, what's the latest innovation? What's the without giving away your secret sauce or
Yeah, that's okay.
but
I won't.
what's the thing that you hear from your clients more often than not in terms of the things they're struggling with?
What we're hearing is, I don't need anything else. And that is, truly being this all-in-one back office management platform across time, schedule automation, payroll reporting, people management. It's true. They don't need anything else. And that is exactly what we wanted to build.
That's great. I mean, I work with, as you know, I work with I don't call them contractors anymore, right? Because and I hope you appreciate the perspective. They're business owners, right? So the piece that you're addressing is the fact that they're business owners. They have to manage a business.
Yeah.
They are very good about managing the work in the field, about understanding the technical elements of construction. Many of them are not, I will say, they're not great business people.
Yeah.
That was not their, right. They didn't go into it because they wanted to be in business. They were very good at what they did. So I don't call them contractors. They're all business owners. And I think that helping business owners sort of solve their problems is a great place to be, because there's always something to solve. There's always something new that's going to come up. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so many ways. I'll send you my email. I always love hearing from customers and prospective customers, people that have questions about payroll and how we're disrupting the space. Always follow me on LinkedIn. I'm sharing our journey along the way, our trade shows, our events, our special moments. So by all means, I can send you all of these links, and yeah, I welcome all feedback. Excellent.
And for those of you who are listening, it's Trade, TRAYD.
Yes.
Right? The website is buildtrade.com.
Yep.
Did I get it right?
Nailed it.
Excellent. Last question for you, and then I'm gonna let you get back to your day, because I am sure there's a laundry list of things that are piling up. And I am grateful for the time you're giving me. Do you have a favorite book or someone who you follow in terms of thought leadership that has been the book that you would recommend to people, or somebody who's in thought leadership who you is just their information is just like spot on?
This is going to be more of a startup founder answer than
Sure.
Anna as an individual, because I don't remember the last time I read a book for pleasure, but I read a lot of books for work.
Yep.
And I will say The Cold Start Problem by Andrew Chen was one of the better startup books I've read, which is essentially how do you get to one? And it's perfect for me. So for anyone who is, for these business owners who are looking to just build and grow and start from zero, that's a book I would recommend.
Excellent. And is there somebody in the space, a thought leader that you on social media that you follow, or somebody's podcast that you will listen to? Anybody?
I'm completely blanking on the name. What is the name of the startup? I might have to circle back on this answer. I might need to do post call notes. I feel like I'm absorbing so much content every single day, so it's hard for me to identify, but is it Guy Raz who does I'm gonna come back to you.
All right.
Save that answer for later.
And I recognize there's a lot of stuff that comes at us, right? And it comes at us very quickly. So it's hard sometimes to really isolate. And sometimes you hear something and you're like, I know I heard it. I forget who said it. And it's like,
yes.
So
I found it. It's How I Built This by Guy Raz. And it's a podcast, and I've listened to probably almost every single episode. And no matter if the founder is building a dating app or a tech platform or a SaaS platform, like these founders all go through the same ups and downs, highs and lows. So that's my answer.
Yeah. Well, I totally appreciate that. And from one small business owner to another small business owner, I wish you all the luck in the world. And
Thank you.
hopefully there are some young girls out there who get inspired and decide to do something bold and challenge convention and not be afraid. So thank you for your time. This has been tremendous. I appreciate your input, and hopefully this will be great information for other folks, other women who are in the industry.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you.